Best friend convinced my wife I was cheating on her, and she ended up. So, a bit of backstory. My wife Katie and I had our daughter last December. The birth was really traumatic for both of us, but especially her. She ended up with postpartum depression and has been in therapy since. We agreed that she'd stay home full-time after everything that happened, so I've been the one bringing in the money. That's been our plan from the start. She'd focus on getting better and taking care of our baby while I worked to cover the bills. Everything was fine for the first few months. She had her therapy sessions, I did my job, and yeah, it was hard, but we were managing. But then, about a couple of months ago, my boss came to me with this project. It was one of those big opportunity things, you know? A lot of overtime, but it would be great for my career and also a nice financial bump for us. I talked to Katie about it, explained that it'd be intense for about 4 weeks, and she was totally on board. We figured her mom and her best friend Molly could help with the baby while I focused on work. Now, Molly's been Katie's best friend forever. She's a stay-at-home mom too, with 2 little kids, so it made sense for her to come over and help out during the day. At first, it was going great. Katie seemed a little more relaxed, Molly was good with the baby, and I felt like we had a solid support system going on. But as the project stretched on, things started to feel off. It was during the 3rd week that I first noticed something weird. Katie was colder with me. I'd come home after a long day, and instead of a normal conversation, she'd just give me these short answers or act distant. At first, I thought she was just tired. I mean, she's dealing with a lot, right? But then I noticed that Molly was hanging around more and more, staying later in the evenings, like way after dinner time, when she'd usually have gone home to her own kids. So one night, I get home, and Molly's there again. It's late, probably around 9 or 10, and instead of heading to bed, she's sitting on the couch with Katie. I say a quick hello and go straight to check on our daughter, like I always do. But as I'm walking down the hall, I hear Molly say something like, "See? He doesn't even stop to greet you first. Definitely a sign." A sign? A sign of what? I turn around feeling pretty confused and ask her what she's talking about. And that's when the shit hits the fan. Molly straight up accuses me of having an affair. She says I'm being distant, not paying attention to Katie, and that the long hours at work are just a cover-up. I was so blindsided by it, I didn't even know what to say at first. Then she goes on, saying that I must hate Katie now because she has postpartum depression and gained weight from the pregnancy, and that's why I'm supposedly cheating. I just stood there, stunned. Like, how did we get here? I turned to Katie, thinking she'd laugh it off or tell Molly to stop being ridiculous. But instead, Katie starts crying. Not just a few tears, full-on sobbing. Molly's standing there, arms crossed, looking all self-righteous, and then she demands to see my phone. She said that if I wasn't hiding anything, I should have no problem handing it over. I refused, of course. It's my phone, and I'm not about to let her go through it like I'm some criminal. But then Katie looks up at me, with these sad, tired eyes, and quietly asks if she can see it. At that moment, something broke inside me. I can't even explain it, but the fact that she thought I could actually be cheating on her, after everything we've been through, just wrecked me. I'd been working so hard for us, for her and our daughter, and now she's sitting there thinking I've been sneaking around behind her back. But I loved her, and I wanted to prove her wrong, so I handed her my phone. She goes through it looking for anything suspicious. And guess what? Nothing. There's no affair, no secret messages, no hidden apps. It's just my work emails, texts, and a bunch of dumb memes from my buddies. Molly doesn't back down, though. She starts yelling about how I must have deleted the evidence, like, seriously? That's when our daughter woke up from all the noise, and I lost it. I told Molly to get out of our house. I was done with her. She was causing more harm than good, and I wasn't going to let her keep stirring up this drama. Molly storms out, and I'm left with Katie, who's still crying on the couch. I wanted to comfort her, but I was so mad and hurt that I couldn't even think straight. Once I got our daughter back to sleep, I sat down next to Katie and tried to talk to her. I asked her why she didn't just come to me if she was worried. Why did she listen to Molly over me? She didn't have a real answer. She said she's been scared ever since I started working more, and Molly kept telling her that the extra hours, the overtime, were all signs of an affair. I reminded her that we talked about the project before I even accepted it. We knew it would be intense, but it was supposed to be a good thing for us, not something that'd tear us apart. She finally said she was sorry, that she shouldn't have doubted me. She even apologized for going through my phone. But the damage was already done, you know? Like, even though she said she believed me, the fact that she thought I was capable of cheating just didn't sit right with me. Over the next few days, things were tense. Katie seemed like she was trying to make up for what happened, but I could still feel that cold distance between us. It wasn't the same, and I couldn't stop thinking about how Molly had been planting all these ideas in her head. It wasn't fair. I thought we were supposed to be a team, but it felt like Molly was pulling her away from me. That's when I decided I needed to step back from work. The project was almost over, and I didn't want to give Katie any more reasons to doubt me. I wanted to spend more time with her and our daughter, to show her that I was still here, still committed to our family. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never go back to the way they were. And that was just the beginning. A few days after the whole Molly thing blew up, I thought things were getting back to normal. Katie was still acting a little off, but she wasn't crying or accusing me anymore, so I figured we were slowly moving past it. I even started scaling back on my work hours to be home more. It wasn't easy, but I wanted to prove to Katie that she could trust me. I thought that'd be enough. Boy, was I wrong. One day I get home from work, and the house looks like it's been hit by a tornado. Papers everywhere, drawers pulled out, cushions tossed around. It's like someone ransacked the place. The first thing that hit me was panic, thinking we'd been robbed or something. I shout out for Katie, but there's no answer. Then I hear our daughter crying from her room. When I walk in, she's in her crib, crying her little heart out. And no Katie, no note, nothing. Just a wrecked house and my baby girl totally alone. My mind's racing at this point. I call Katie's phone, but it goes straight to voicemail. I'm trying not to freak out, but I'm freaking out. Did something happen to her? Did she get hurt? Or I don't even know what to think. I start calling around. Her parents, her friends, anyone who might know where she is. No one's seen her. Now I'm really worried. So I call my mom, asking if she can come over and watch our daughter while I try to figure out what the hell is going on. Before my mom can even get to the house, Katie walks in with Molly driving her. I see the car pull up through the window, and I instantly feel a mix of relief and anger. Molly doesn't come in, which I'm honestly thankful for, but Katie walks through the door, eyes red, clearly upset, but not saying a word. I'm standing there in the middle of this wrecked house, holding our crying daughter, and all I can say is, "What the hell happened? Where were you?" And instead of explaining anything, Katie starts yelling. Not like the sad, emotional kind of yelling, but angry, almost like I did something wrong. She's accusing me of cheating again. She says the therapy I told her I was going to start is just a cover-up so I can sneak around and meet my mistress. At this point, I'm just in shock. Like, how are we back to this? We just went through this whole thing a few days ago, and now here we are again? I try to stay calm. I try to explain that I'm going to therapy because I need help dealing with all the stress and everything that's been going on, not because I'm hiding anything, but she doesn't care. She's convinced that everything I say is a lie, and then she does something I never thought she'd do. She hits me, right in the face. It wasn't a slap either, it was a punch. My nose starts bleeding instantly, and I can't even process what just happened. She kind of freezes too, like she didn't expect to do that. Her face goes blank and she just sits down on the couch, staring at the wall, completely zoning out. No apology, no reaction, nothing. I'm standing there with a busted nose, holding our crying daughter, trying to wrap my head around what just happened. I didn't know what to do. All I knew was that I had to get out of there. Not just for me, but for our daughter's safety. I wasn't going to take any chances after she laid hands on me. If she could do that to me, what if it happened again, but worse? So I call my mom back, telling her to come over ASAP, and while I'm waiting, I pack a bag for our daughter. Katie's still just sitting there, not moving, not saying anything. She's completely checked out. It's like the woman I married is gone, and I'm looking at a stranger. When my mom finally gets there, I explain the situation in the quickest way possible. She's shocked, of course, but she doesn't ask too many questions. We leave Katie on the couch, and I take our daughter to my parents' house. The whole drive over, I'm trying to process everything. Like, how did we go from a happy family to this mess? I know Katie's dealing with a lot mentally, but I never thought things would get this bad. I'm scared for her, but I'm also scared for myself and our daughter. I can't let this keep happening, but I also don't want to just abandon her. She's sick, I know that. But where do I draw the line between helping her and protecting myself? Once we're at my parents' place, I drop off my daughter with my dad and head straight to urgent care. My nose was throbbing the whole time, and I had blood all over my shirt. The doctor said it wasn't broken, but that it was going to be sore for a while. They gave me some pain meds and sent me home. By the time I got back to my parents' house, it was late and my daughter was already asleep. I sat down with my mom, trying to explain everything that happened, but even as I said it out loud, it didn't feel real. My wife had hit me. My wife, the woman I love and had a child with, actually hit me, and now I had no idea what was going to happen next. The next morning, Katie's parents called me. They were obviously worried about her, and I told them what happened. I didn't mention the hitting part, though. I couldn't bring myself to say it, but they knew something was seriously wrong, and they suggested inpatient treatment for her. It was the first time anyone had said something that made sense. We agreed to separate for now. Katie would stay with her parents, and I'd stay at mine with our daughter. I wasn't ready to go straight to divorce, but I couldn't go back to living with her. Not like this. Not after what happened. I needed to protect myself and my daughter, and I couldn't trust Katie to not hurt me again. That night, lying in bed at my parents' house, I realized I needed to do more than just wait for things to get better. I needed to take action, make sure I was legally protected if things went south. I started documenting everything: the ransacked house, the accusations, the hitting. I didn't want to think about a custody battle. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore that it might be coming. My heart was broken. I love Katie, but this wasn't her anymore. This was something else. Something dark and messed up that had taken over. And as much as I wanted to believe she'd get better, I had to face the reality that she might not. So I did the only thing I could do. I kept my distance, prayed for her to get help, and made sure my daughter and I were safe. Update 1. So after that night, I moved in with my parents, like I said. It wasn't easy. Every day I was thinking about what the hell had gone wrong in my marriage. Katie and I had always been close, and now it felt like I didn't even know her anymore. I was trying to focus on my daughter, but it was hard with everything going on. The house, the accusations, the fact that she hit me, it was all just too much. A few days go by and I haven't heard much from Katie. Her parents were doing their best to get her some help, but they were worried too. They didn't know how to handle this any more than I did. My mind was going back and forth, trying to figure out if there was a way to save my marriage. Maybe if Katie got the right treatment, she could come back from this. But the longer I thought about it, the more I realized that I needed to protect my daughter. That had to be my priority. One night, maybe 4 or 5 days after I moved out, I'm just sitting at my parents' house playing with my daughter when I get a call from Katie's dad. He says Katie's been asking to see our daughter. They were trying to get her into inpatient treatment, but she was refusing. Apparently, she was insisting that she could still be a good mom and that this was all my fault. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to let her see our daughter, but another part of me was terrified. I mean, she left her alone before and she hit me. I wasn't sure if it was safe. Katie's dad told me that she wasn't doing well, and he was worried about her mental health. He asked if maybe she could see our daughter, with him and Katie's mom supervising. I agreed, but only if it was in a controlled environment. I wasn't going to let her be alone with our baby, not after everything that had happened. So we set up a visit at her parents' house. The whole drive over, I had this sinking feeling in my stomach. I didn't know what to expect. When I got there, Katie was sitting in the living room looking, well, she looked bad. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were swollen like she'd been crying for days, and she was just staring at the floor. She didn't even look up when I came in with our daughter. Katie's mom tried to make things feel normal, like it was just a regular visit, but it was so awkward. I sat on the other side of the room, holding our daughter, while Katie's parents tried to get her to talk. She didn't say much, just a few words here and there, mostly about how she missed our daughter and how this was all my fault. I could see her mom getting uncomfortable, but she didn't say anything. They were obviously walking on eggshells around Katie. The visit was only about an hour, but it felt like forever. I was relieved when it was over. Katie barely interacted with our daughter at all. She just kept staring at her, and then back at me, like I was the enemy. I tried to talk to her, to ask if she was going to get help, but she just ignored me. Her dad finally stepped in and said it was time to wrap things up, and I was out of there as fast as I could. On the way back home, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Katie. She's angry again, accusing me of turning our daughter against her, saying I was keeping her away on purpose. I didn't even respond. I couldn't. There was no reasoning with her at this point. Every time I tried to explain myself, it just made things worse. Then, a couple of nights later, something crazy happens. It's late, probably around midnight, and I'm about to head to bed when I hear a knock at the door. My heart sinks because I've got a bad feeling about who it could be. I peek through the window and sure enough, it's Katie. She's standing there, looking frantic, with Molly by her side. I open the door just a crack and ask what's going on. Katie starts yelling, saying she wants to take our daughter, that she's her mother and has every right to have her back. I can barely get a word in before she's pushing at the door trying to get inside. I stand my ground, telling her she can't just show up like this in the middle of the night and demand to take our daughter. Molly, of course, is egging her on, telling her that she should call the cops on me, that I'm keeping Katie from her child. At this point, I've had enough. I tell both of them that they need to leave before I call the police myself. Katie's still trying to push her way in, and Molly's standing there, throwing accusations at me like she's some kind of lawyer. Finally, my dad comes to the door. He's a calm guy, but when he saw what was happening, he stepped in and told them to leave. He was polite, but firm, and that seemed to finally get through to them. Katie backs off, and Molly, for once, doesn't say anything. They leave, but not before Katie screams at me that this isn't over. After they left, I just stood there trying to process what had just happened. I mean, who shows up in the middle of the night like that, demanding to take a baby? I knew right then and there that I needed to take more drastic steps. Katie wasn't in her right mind, and as much as I didn't want to escalate things, I had to protect my daughter. The next morning, I made some calls and started looking into getting a restraining order. I never thought my life would turn into this. Just a few months ago, Katie and I were a happy family. We had a beautiful baby girl, and now everything's falling apart. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do know one thing. I have to keep my daughter safe no matter what, even if that means keeping her away from her own mother. Update 2. So after that late night showdown with Katie and Molly, I knew things were just getting worse. I started the process to get a restraining order. I didn't want to, but I felt like I didn't have a choice anymore. Katie's mental state wasn't stable, and I couldn't risk her showing up at my parents' house in the middle of the night again, demanding to take our daughter. A few days go by, and things are mostly quiet. I wasn't hearing much from Katie or her parents, and I was trying to keep it that way. I was focused on taking care of my daughter and just keeping some kind of normalcy in my life. Then, out of nowhere, I get a call from Katie's mom. She sounds panicked, which immediately puts me on edge. She says Katie's been getting worse, that she's refusing to eat, refusing to talk to anyone, and just sits in her room all day. I ask if she's been to the hospital yet, and her mom says they've tried, but Katie's refusing any kind of help. Now, she's asking for our daughter again, saying that seeing her will fix everything. Hearing that made my stomach drop. I told her mom straight up that I couldn't let Katie see our daughter right now, not in the state she was in. Her mom understood, but she was clearly desperate. She started crying on the phone, telling me she didn't know what else to do. I felt awful, but I had to stick to my guns. Our daughter's safety was my #1 priority. Not long after that, I get a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I peeked through the window, and it's Molly. Yep, her again. She's standing there with this smug look on her face like she knows something I don't. I open the door just enough to talk, but don't invite her in. I wasn't in the mood for whatever game she was playing. Before I can even say anything, she starts talking. She says Katie's been telling her all about how I'm keeping her baby from her, and that she's going to take action if I don't let her see our daughter soon. I tell Molly that Katie isn't well right now, and that it's not safe for our daughter to be around her. Molly smirks and says, "You know, she's still her mother, and a mother has rights. You don't want this to go to court, do you?" I was so pissed off at this point, but I kept my cool. I told her that Katie's mental health is the main concern, and that's why I can't let her see our daughter until she gets help. Molly gives me this nasty grin and says, "Maybe it's you who needs help. I bet a judge would love to hear about how you've been handling things." That's when I shut the door in her face. I wasn't going to entertain her manipulations anymore. I knew Molly was just trying to get under my skin, and I wasn't falling for it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't bluffing about going to court. A few days later, I get another call, but this time it's from Katie herself. Her voice is shaky and she's crying. She says she's sorry for everything, that she knows she's been acting crazy, and she just wants to make things right. I'll be honest, part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she was finally realizing she needed help and that we could fix things. But deep down, I didn't trust it. The way things had escalated, it just didn't seem like something she'd come to on her own. It felt like another manipulation. Still, I told her I was glad she was apologizing and asked if she was ready to go to the hospital. That's when the conversation flipped. She started crying harder and saying she didn't need a hospital, she just needed our daughter, that our daughter would make everything better. She even said that once she had her back, I could move back in and we could be a family again. It was like everything came crashing down in that moment. I realized she didn't want help. She just wanted to control the situation, and our daughter was her way of doing that. I told her I couldn't let her see our daughter right now, and that she needed professional help. And then she lost it. She started screaming at me over the phone, saying I was stealing her child, that I was turning everyone against her, and that I was a terrible father. I tried to calm her down, but it was useless. She was completely out of control. I hung up the phone, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and just plain exhaustion. How did it get this bad? How did we go from a happy family to this disaster? The next day, I got a call from Katie's dad. He told me they were finally taking her to the hospital. Apparently, after that phone call with me, she had another breakdown, and they had no choice but to admit her. I didn't know if I should feel relieved or guilty. I didn't want her to suffer, but I knew this was the only way she'd get better. A few days passed, and things were quiet again. Katie was in the hospital, getting the help she needed. I was finally starting to feel like maybe things were going to settle down. Maybe we could all heal from this. But then, just when I thought things were calming down, I got hit with something I didn't expect at all. Katie's parents called me again, but this time, it wasn't to give me an update on her condition. It was to tell me that Molly had filed a restraining order against me. I couldn't believe it. After everything she'd done, manipulating Katie, trying to break up our family, now she was turning the tables and making me the villain. Apparently, Molly claimed I had been emotionally abusive toward Katie and that I was a danger to both Katie and our daughter. It was all complete bullshit, but the fact that she'd gone to this length was insane to me. I didn't know what she hoped to gain from it, but it was clear she wasn't done messing with my life. Now, I'm not only dealing with my wife's mental health crisis, but I'm also fighting off false accusations from her manipulative best friend. It feels like everything's spiraling out of control, and I don't know what's coming next. Update 3. So after the whole restraining order thing from Molly, I was honestly in shock. I couldn't believe she'd stooped that low. I mean, I was the one trying to keep everything together while my wife was going through her mental health crisis, and now I'm the one getting accused of being emotionally abusive? It was like something out of a nightmare, and I was living it. I knew the restraining order was bogus, but the fact that she even filed it threw me off completely. I had to lawyer up and fight it, which was just another thing to add to the list of crap I was already dealing with. I spent days preparing with my lawyer, gathering evidence to show the court that Molly was the one manipulating Katie, not me. I had texts, emails, everything, but still I couldn't shake this feeling of dread. What if they believed her? What if this whole thing turned against me? Anyway, the court date came up pretty fast. I walked into that courtroom feeling like I was on trial for something I didn't even do. Molly was there, all smug, like she had already won. Katie's parents were there too, sitting behind her, which hurt even more. I knew they were struggling with everything that had happened, but seeing them take Molly's side, that stung. The judge starts off by letting Molly talk. She goes into this whole dramatic story about how I've been emotionally abusive to Katie, how I've isolated her from her friends, aka Molly, and how I'm keeping her daughter away from her. It was ridiculous, but she said it with such confidence that I could see a couple of people in the courtroom buying into it. I sat there, grinding my teeth, trying to keep my cool. Then it was my turn. My lawyer went through everything. The texts, the emails, the timeline of events. We showed how Molly had been interfering in my marriage, how she'd convinced Katie I was cheating, how she'd escalated things to the point where Katie had a mental breakdown. I even had witnesses, people who knew Molly and knew how she operated, who could back up what I was saying. We laid it all out there, no stone unturned. And guess what? The judge saw right through Molly's lies. The restraining order was thrown out, and Molly was visibly pissed. She stormed out of the courtroom without even looking at me. Katie's parents, though, they just sat there, looking defeated. I don't think they knew what to believe anymore. But even with that little win, it didn't feel like a victory. Not really. I was still dealing with the fallout of everything. Katie was still in the hospital, and I hadn't heard much about how she was doing. Her parents stopped contacting me after the restraining order incident, and I was starting to feel completely cut off from that side of my life. All I had left was my daughter, and I was doing everything I could to keep her safe. A couple weeks later, I got the call that changed everything. It was Katie's mom. She sounded different, not panicked like before, but more calm. And that scared me. She told me that Katie had been asking to see me, that she wanted to talk. I wasn't sure what to expect. Was she getting better? Did she want to apologize? I didn't know, but I agreed to go, more for closure than anything else. So I show up at the hospital, nervous as hell. I hadn't seen Katie in weeks, and the last time we spoke, it didn't exactly go well. When I walked into her room, she looked better. Still not herself, but definitely more put together than the last time I saw her. She didn't look at me right away. She was just staring out the window, like she was lost in thought. Finally, she turned to me and said, "I'm sorry." It caught me off guard. After everything that had happened, hearing her apologize was the last thing I expected. I didn't know what to say, so I just sat there, waiting for her to continue. She told me she didn't know what was real anymore, that Molly had filled her head with so many lies that she started to believe them, even when part of her knew they weren't true. She admitted that she felt ashamed of how she treated me. but that she still couldn't understand why I had taken our daughter away. That's when I had to explain everything again, as gently as I could. I told her that it wasn't about me trying to hurt her, but about protecting our daughter. I reminded her of the night she hit me, the night she left our daughter alone in the house. She started crying, saying she didn't remember half of it, that her mind was so foggy back then. It was hard to hear, but I could tell she was being honest. Then she said something that really hit me. I don't think I can be a mom right now. It was like a punch to the gut, but at the same time, it was a relief. For so long, I'd been holding on to the idea that we could fix this, that Katie could get better and we'd go back to being a family. But hearing her admit that, it made me realize how far gone things were. She wasn't in a place to be a mother, and I had to accept that. We talked for a while longer, mostly about our daughter and what was best for her. Katie said she wanted me to have full custody, at least for now. She needed time to get better, and she didn't want to risk putting our daughter through any more of her instability. It was the hardest conversation I've ever had, but it was also the most honest. When I left the hospital that day, I felt empty, but also like a weight had been lifted. I knew Katie wasn't out of the woods yet, but at least now there was some clarity. I wasn't living in this constant state of uncertainty anymore. I had a path forward, even if it wasn't the one I imagined when we first had our daughter. So here I am now. I've got full custody of my daughter, and I'm trying to build a life for the two of us. Katie's still in treatment, and I visit her occasionally, but things aren't the same. I don't know if they ever will be, but at least I know I did everything I could. And now, it's about moving forward, one step at a time.